Welcome to Cosmic Roots. I am Grace, and I'm here with my lovely guest, Chloe Bear, and she is an amazing astrologer, digging deeply into astrology and finding new ways that are really in alignment of looking at astrology, and also a cartographer of human design, as well as a liver detox specialist. Thank you for being here, Chloe. When we first met, she just had this like courage, boldness, and bravery, and I really admired that about you. And I'm really happy that you're here.
Thank you for having me.
Mhm. So I first want to begin with just talking a little bit about how you started your path of learning human design and astrology and getting into the design of people and the design of our psychology and all of that.
Sure. So it started with just having friends that were already really into astrology. And when they would talk about it, they had their own language. And it was just like when you hear someone speaking in any foreign language, there's a barrier and you're like, what are they saying? Oh, so and so over there has moon in Libra, and that's why they're like this, and that's why they're like this, and that's why blah, 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 blah. And I'm over here like, I can read your body language. I can start to sense into what you're saying just by your tone and all those things, but I couldn't understand the actual words that they were saying. So that really prompted me to want to go start looking it up. But I was having a very difficult time in the beginning. I couldn't grasp it. And then they had a friend who introduced us all to our human design charts. And so she shows me my chart and she's like, this is you, you're a generator. And I'm like, cool, what does this mean? And she's like, I don't know. And then ran away. And I was like devastated. Like, no, you can't just show me this really cool looking chart, because the human design chart doesn't look anything like a regular astrology chart.
Right.
I'm like, you can't show me this chart, which looks utterly fascinating, and then run away and not tell me anything about me. So I went and I looked it up. And at the time, there was this website that had pretty much everything that you could want to know about human design. It's basically the textbook was on this website, and I just absorbed it. I would read it and it would just stick. I didn't actively try to memorize it. It just like glue in my brain. Whereas regular astrology at the time was not sticking. And I ended up meeting with this person. We had like a one-on-one a month later. And I just was like, I learned all this stuff. And she's just like jaw to the floor, like, I didn't know anything about this. But she didn't have any idea. She knew about human design, and she was like this goofy little chart fairy, just showing everybody their charts, but not having any idea what it meant herself. And so then I come back a month later and being like, this is everything that I learned. And she's just like, oh my gosh. And that's what happened. But what I will say is that once I got the foundational knowledge of human design down, then I ended up returning to classical astrology because human design has all these different layers, and some of the parts of human design that are just in human design, I grasped that right away. But then it would make references to things like planets, and human design itself doesn't talk about the meaning of planets. It's just referring to the planets, and it's kind of just like, it's the same as in regular astrology. So then I went back and studied regular astrology again, and then it started clicking.
Okay. Nice. So human design was really the foundation for you in your studies. And what would you say is like the difference between human design and an astrology chart? Like what is added to human design that makes it different?
Well, human design is a synthesis of a bunch of different systems. But then when you're looking at more of a classical Western astrology type of because there's different kinds of astrology. So let's keep it simple, and let's say we're looking at Western astrology. Western astrology in general, you look at the world, right? You have the sky above you, which, and then you have the sky that's below you. If the earth wasn't in the way, you would have sky below you. So that's why on a regular astrology chart, you have the circle, the 360 degrees of sky all around you. And the sky is divided into 12 portions of 30 degrees. And that's your 12 signs of the zodiac. But, that's 30 degrees is a big difference in angle. So if you're born, say, on the solstice of December 21st, you're right at the beginning of Capricorn. Are you going to be the same kind of Capricorn who's born right at the tail end of Capricorn, which is somewhere of, say, January 20th? Probably not. And because it's so close to where the signs change, that's why they refer to cusps. So a solstice person might be considered Capricorn, but cusp Sagittarius, because there's such a broad angle. So many degrees are covered by just this one term, Capricorn. Now, on the other hand, human design, it doesn't utilize the zodiac. It uses the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching. So now we have the 360 degrees of the circle, because that's the sky above, the sky below. And instead of dividing it into 12 and each of the 12 labels having 30 degrees, we've divided 360 degrees into 64, and that's roughly 5 degrees. So now, okay, we have this much smaller slice of the sky. We can use a narrower archetype, because to go back to Capricorn, Capricorns are said to be, they look at the goat, because that's the Capricorn, and they're like, oh, they're this goat, they like to climb to the top of the mountain. Most Capricorns are like CEOs and this and that, and it's not true. When you actually survey the top 10 biggest companies and you find out when their birthdays of the CEOs are, they're not normally Capricorns. So Capricorn, there's all these labels, there's all these stereotypes for what a Capricorn is supposed to be, but so many people don't fall within that range, and it's because there's such a big, broad range of when you could be a Capricorn, versus in human design, now you've got a narrow range. So if you're born during the time of Capricorn, well, in the beginning of the solstice, that person's going to be a 10 in human design. That person's going to be under the 10th hexagram. So this person's work is all about, what does it mean to be? What is natural behavior? And the downside is, these are people who are obsessed with every single movement they make. Am I being natural? Am I being normal? Or these are people who finally just relaxed and they just do their thing. And then you have the other end of the spectrum of Capricorn at the end. That's going to be the 60th gate. And so these are people who are obsessed with limitation. Are limits, are they going to be feeling limited, like they can't do anything, they're just constantly butting their heads against a wall? Or are they going to be like, yes, I'm limited to being a human being, therefore I don't have to worry about what it means to be grass. I am limited to just being me. I don't have to worry about what it means to be you. So I can just throw all that stuff out. What is limits versus, there's always a positive and negative. And so that's one of the things that kind of leads into another thing about a system that goes along with human design, which is the gene keys, because the I Ching that human design is heavily based on is ancient Chinese wisdom. And if you go read all the old school I Ching information, it's talking about when when you're like sneaking past a tiger, don't step on his tail or you'll scare him. And it's like, how many people actually wander around in the jungle finding tigers? So some of the allegories in the I Ching translations are very irrelevant to today's style of living. So what the Gene Keys does is it takes all those old translations and rewrites it in a language that is more pertinent to today. And part of that is making a spectrum like frequency, because we know what frequency is nowadays, and we know you can have a high and maybe a medium and a low frequency. So like with limitation, well, limitation, that word alone contains kind of a negative connotation. So that might be the low frequency, and the middle frequency might be realism, and the high frequency is going to be called justice. So, I mean, those words are a little bit enigmatic sometimes, and they require some contemplation, but that's part of the joy of studying the Gene Keys in human design.
Yeah, I have spent some time with the Gene Keys, and that feels very magical just to listen to one and having that time to contemplate. It's like these new ideas are sparked within you, and this remembrance and this like joy. Yeah, I definitely recommend the Gene Keys to anybody listening. And I love how you mentioned like that high road, low road as a spectrum, because it does highlight that in the Gene Keys. And I think that's present in like all of these systems, astrology, Gene Keys, anything where you're learning yourself and learning the qualities you were given. It's like we always have the quality, but we have the choice also how it's going to manifest, how we're going to use it. I think you had mentioned saying that in another way before when we spoke about like you could either let it play you or learn to play with it.
Exactly.
Yes.
Like, so my personal example would be I have a particular configuration with Venus and Jupiter. So to briefly explain that, it's Venus is the planet of attraction, right? She's the planet of love. So where I feel attracted to things, there is this play between Venus and Jupiter is the largest planet in our solar system. So Jupiter brings in this energy of bigness, expansion, and more. So when I find what I really am attracted to, I want more of it. And when we're dealing with things like food, that can be a problem when it's not good for me types of food. Like when I was younger, things like Mountain Dew or cheese and meat and certain things, I would eat it all. And then I would feel sick and I couldn't help myself, even though I knew you've done this before. Why did I eat half of a cheesecake? I don't know. I couldn't help myself. And so using astrology, this one was astrology in particular, using astrology, it really helped me to come to terms with, this is an energy that I have to deal with my whole life. I cannot turn it off. In fact, when it's something that I like astrology and I want more, it benefits me because now I've learned it and it's a good thing. But when I am liking things that are harmful, this energy is playing me. So rather than this energy playing me, I'm playing with it. And I realize I can change what I like. I don't have to like cheesecake. I can like oranges or celery juice or something else.
Yeah, that is so great. It's like the astrology chart is a mirror to where we can see ourselves from an observer's point of view and also on a piece of paper, which, it doesn't have as much emotional attachment or anything. It's just like a graph, like a chart, a map, like you say. And so it is a lot easier to just see ourselves from the observer's perspective and make higher choices based off of that. And with that, you mentioning your love for astrology and how that helped you, I did want to dive into vibrational astrology, which you have shared a bit with me about, but I am really loving the idea of that, and I'm loving uh, how I just I just want to learn more about it.
All right, so I'll
Can you
explain what it
explain
is
what it is? Yeah.
for those who aren't familiar with vibrational astrology. Vibrational astrology is what it does is it well, let me say where it came from. It came from extreme case sampling. Instead of what most astrologers do when they're trying to study and find evidence for astrology being real or really working, most of us, we just have a tendency to study the people that come to us. And so we're saying, oh, all these people are coming to us, and I see these patterns in the people that come to me. So when this is in the chart, that must be what it means, because all the people that come to me display this pattern. But there is a selection bias, because I am who and what I am, and so I'm going to attract a certain kind of people. Now, I can't remember what the name of this database is, but many decades ago, there were some people that did a survey of thousands of people, and they saved all of their birth data, and there's this public database of all these people with their birth information. And so what the vibrational astrologers do is they type in within their computer system, they type in the parameters that they want to study. And rather than them selecting people that they know personally, the computer will select people out of this database. So these are people that we don't know. And we'll say, because I'm picking on Capricorn, we'll say, we want to know, what does it really mean to be a Capricorn? We've got all these archetypes and stereotypes. They're supposed to be CEO like, they're supposed to be very structured, they're supposed to be super organized, they're supposed to kind of butt heads a little bit because it's a goat, blah blah blah. Well, what is that true? So how might we guess, or how might we think someone would be really displaying Capricorn qualities? Well, the more planets you're going to have in Capricorn, it would only make logical sense that the more you would display Capricorn traits. So then what the researchers do is they put a point system to the different luminary bodies or planets, since we kind of call them luminary bodies because technically speaking, the sun and the moon aren't planets, but we use them. So, so you would give the sun a number, say like 10 points. If you have sun in Capricorn, that's 10 points. If you have Mercury, Venus, and then Mars in Capricorn, each of those will be, say, 7 points. Moon will be 8 points. Jupiter and Saturn might be 5 points. Uranus, Neptune might be 3, and Pluto will be 2. Something somewhat arbitrary, but not entirely arbitrary, because the further out, it's generally recognized that the further out the planet is, not so much how it's less of an influence, but it's just different, because the outer planets tend to be more generational, and they tend to be more out there because of how slow they move. And then the inner planets, well, they're called inner planets, so they're kind of your inner working. So they would get a higher point system. And then the moon and the sun, they get the highest points, of course, because, well, the sun does have the most mass in all of the solar system, and through whatever divine positioning, the moon looks to be the same size as the sun, regardless of whether or not it is. So we make this point system, and we put it in the computer, and the computer pulls all the people with the most points. Someone with what is called a stellium. A stellium is when you have 4 or more planets all together in one spot in the chart. So it would pull up a person with, let's say, it would potentially pull up someone such as myself, because I have Sun, Mercury, Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus all in Capricorn. So it would potentially pull up someone like me, or it could pull up someone who also had Mars and Venus in Capricorn. That person would have even more points because those are not in Capricorn for me personally. But the point is, it's an extreme case sampling. We're looking for someone who is exemplifying extreme traits, and then we would go to the internet, the wonderful internet, and look up the biography of the people that the computer pull up. The computer would pull up a list of people with the most points because they have the most planets in Capricorn. And then we would go to the internet and see, is there biography for this person, and can we determine how they live their life? And then we would read their biography, and we would read the biography of, let's say, the top 5 people, and we would try to determine what is it that all 5 have in common. Because if it's true that Capricorn is a quality of a planet being a certain part of the sky, then that quality must be on all 5 people. And if it's not, then the hypothesis is incorrect. Whereas everyone's trying to say, oh, we have this archetype, the archetype's really broad, you may or may not fit into it. Well, if you have that many planets in Capricorn and you don't fit into the archetype must be wrong. So it's a little bit of a different approach. Mm-hmm. So using this, in this example, what the researchers have found is that what Capricorn does is it's a role player. It plays mm-hmm. roles. So you can kind of see how the classical interpretation of Capricorn being about structure and boundary is more of a symptom of it playing mm-hmm. roles. So what I've really noticed about vibrational astrology is it's starting to get to the root of why things are the way they are, rather than what we've noticed. What we notice and even in health, what we notice tends to be symptoms. And the more you dig, then you can find out the root cause. The root cause of being Capricorn is it's here to play a role. And the symptom is, in order to play roles, you need to understand boundaries. You need to understand structure. You need to understand all these other things. So again, it kind of goes back when I was saying Capricorns don't necessarily happen to be CEOs. If they need to be the role of a CEO person, then they will be. But interestingly enough, I find that what vibrational astrology has determined about all the different zodiac signs helped me understand Hellenistic astrology and see Hellenistic astrology better. And Hellenistic astrology is different than regular Western astrology because regular Western astrology puts Aries in the first house, whereas Hellenistic astrology puts Cancer in the first house. And if you put Aries in the first house, that puts Capricorn in the 10th. And it's like, oh yeah, Capricorn's the 10th. He's trying to get to the top. He's that CEO. But if you put Capricorn in the 7th house, now Capricorn is in the house of the other. And Capricorn is this goat. And who's the goat associated with? Goat's associated with the devil. And who's the devil playing? He's playing the adversarial role. And what's Capricorn doing? It's just playing a role.
Interesting. And where is Hellenistic astrology based out of? Like what area
Ancient
of the
Greece.
World? Okay. Wow. That's really interesting. I haven't dived into that realm, but I'd love to. Yes, this is what I was trying to say earlier. I remember you explaining the root, like vibrational astrology touching on the root rather than the symptoms. And that is so important, especially for people who understand holistic health and understand that it's from the roots that we really heal and let go of these symptoms. Or in some cases, since like you said, we're dealing with these energies our whole life, it's not as though we actually let go. It's just constantly tending to the roots and checking in. Yeah. Wow. You've told me that like 3 times and I'm still processing and getting to know it and getting to understand. And I remember you mentioning something about like harmonics in vibrational astrology or how it's connected to music?
Yeah. So harmonics and when you say like the first, second, or third harmonic, it's the same as saying the first, the second, or the third vibration in astrology. Harmonic astrology is a different branch, and I haven't studied that. It doesn't call me, but technically speaking, if you said the 32nd harmonic, it's the same as saying the 32nd vibration.
Okay,
So,
got it.
so what they are is we've got a circle, right? 360-degree circle. Now, if you had it on an actual piece of paper, you can fold it in half, right? So the first vibration is basically just conjunct. So when we're having a new moon, that is the moon conjunct the sun. So that's the first vibration. Second vibration is if you fold it in half. So when you have a full moon, the moon perfectly opposite the sun. If you were to fold that in half, they would be on top of each other now. Okay. It would appear to be on top of each other because they're perfectly opposite, but now you folded it in half. That's the second vibration. You fold it in half and they are going to look conjunct. They're going to look like they're together, but they're not because you're in the second vibration. They're opposite. But it's just a way of manipulating the chart so that you can see more subtle relationships between the planets, because these positionings between the planets create sound waves. So think about when you have speakers in your room or any room or a music hall or whatever. You put the speakers in very particular positions because the sound waves that they create will create constructive and destructive zones. You can literally have, when you go to a concert hall and you sit in the exact center of the room, that is usually where they make the most constructive zone, where you're going to hear all the different instruments evenly and balanced, and you'll hear everything. Whereas if you sit kind of in some awkward little corner of the room or against the wall, maybe you can't hear the cello for whatever reason, because the sound waves are canceling each other out when you're sitting in that particular part of the room. So the reason we use these different vibrational numbers and charts is to allow us to see these constructive and destructive zones in a person's life. So, like if you were to get a reading from a vibrational astrologer, which one day I'll get there, I'm not quite there yet myself, they will tell you things like, in this harmonic chart, you've got this going on, so you have this energy. But a lot of times there will be charts that they won't tell you about at all. And the thing to realize is that you don't have anything going on in that chart. So the question is something like, why are some people empathic and can sense other people's emotions, and how come some people can't? Because they literally have planets creating constructive zones in that chart where empathy is drawn and other people don't. And it's the planets, because they've even got research now where they've taken big microphones and you can look up the sounds of the different planets. The planets make sounds. Wow. And we feel it, even though we don't really hear it. We feel it and we express it in just how we live our lives. And so as the planets move around and as we move, we are just moving around a big concert hall, so to speak, and we're moving in and out of constructive and destructive sound zones that the different planets are making together. And vibrational astrology helps us to see these zones so that we can understand if a person is going to display a certain kind of behavior or not. And we use extreme case sampling in order to determine what configurations mean what. So there's actually research, if you want to know what it takes to be a mass murdering mobster, they've got that research.
Wow. And that would be like no compassion, no empathy, I assume.
Right.
And with that, that has to do also, the folding and everything and experiencing the different places in the room, with the importance of the angles, correct?
Right. So, when you look at a regular astrology chart, that's typically known as the first vibration because it's not been folded. But when you look at the basic angles like opposition, if you have an opposition in your chart, that would be a conjunction in the second harmonic. If you have a square, that would be a conjunction in the fourth harmonic. If you had a square and you were looking at that square in the second harmonic, now that would become an opposition. So we're getting into the math part, right? Because a second harmonic opposition is a 2 by 2. 2 times 2 is 4. And in the first harmonic, that's going to be a square. So you can just extrapolate that. So a sextile, which is a sixth, that's going to be, you would find that as a conjunction in the sixth harmonic or sixth vibrational chart. And it goes all the way up. Now we can get into the math. There's something going on in my 235th harmonic or something, maybe 237th. I can't remember, but the fun research gets when you get into prime numbers, because you see, these are numbers that you can't see. Classic astrology uses, the Hellenistic astrology especially uses the angles that you can really see with your eyes very well. And that's the drawback, is we can only see so much with our eyes anyway. So why limit yourself? Hellenistic astrology limits itself to the conjunction, the opposition, the square, the trine, the sextile. I think that's it. And I'm not into Vedic astrology, but I really appreciate Vedic astrology because they have these techniques that will actually show you different vibrational charts, and they can tell you certain things as well. And they do sometimes look at prime numbers and things like that. So I see how Vedic astrology was starting to grasp some of what we're now uncovering with vibrational astrology, but vibrational astrology is taking it to a whole nother level.
Yeah, definitely peeling back the layers and creating infinite possibilities of like how these charts can manifest. It's really neat.
What it ends up being is the ones that we can see are basic angles, the opposition, the square, trine, sextile, conjunction. They're actually really easy to see in your life. When you get into the higher vibrations, such as the 13th vibration, or what's another good prime number? The 23rd vibration. Now, these are inner processes that people experience. These are like motivational factors. Like if you look at a normal astrology chart, you will not be able to find someone's motivation. But if you fold that chart up into 23 pieces, now you're starting to understand motivations and things like that. And that's one of the cool things that vibrational astrology does that no other system has touched on.
That is really cool. So the obvious aspects, the things that we can see with our own eyes, are the things that we can easily see in our lives. And then the aspects that we can't see easily are the things that we discover as we go deeper and deeper and deeper into ourselves and knowing ourselves and knowing who we are. Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah. So like some people wonder why they can't sit still, why they're so restless. How come they never seem satisfied? Well, it's usually because there's something going on in either the 7th or the 13th harmonic. And that's because these are prime numbers. And of course, prime numbers are going to be odd. And when you look at this, I'm just going all over the place now. When you look at numerology, odd numbers, odd I mean, if you just think of an object and you have an odd number, it's unbalanced. There's just a natural unbalanced aspect to odd numbers. So prime numbers are going to be odd. And so there's a restlessness to them. And when you have even numbers, there's just a more grounded, more settled aspect to them. So when you have, like I said, like when you have a lot of things going on in, say, the 7th or the 13th harmonic, you're going to see restlessness in the person's behavior. And that's when it can be really important to be telling the person that they've got something going on there, because maybe they're wondering, why can't I ever settle down? Why can't I maybe not sit still per se physically, but maybe it is that they physically can't sit still either. It all depends on what is actually going on in that chart.
And from that place of the 7th or 13th, and seeing that issue, that root issue, do they now have the opportunity to learn to play with that energy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. So just bringing it to their conscious awareness can really help, like, set them free. And well, I guess we kind of mentioned that earlier. Wow, beautiful. I do want to talk a little bit more about human design, because
Sure.
I have never really talked or shared about that on this show. I think it's a grand mystery to me. But I was wondering if you can just go through and give like a brief explanation of how many are there? 3 or 4 main types, right? Generator. Is there? Can you do that? Is there
So there's
something?
The reflector, the projector, the manifester, and then there's the generator, and then the manifesting generator. So there's technically 5.
And what are they called? Like 5 what?
They're called aura types.
Aura types?
Aura
types.
Yeah. So like the reflector's aura is kind of like a Teflon, and it's sampling. It's hard to get your finger on because it has this Teflon slippery like nature to it. And if you were to look at a human design chart, and in order to know that they're a reflector, that means all of the centers in the chart are going to be white or open. So they take in information from everywhere. But because they take in information from so many places, they just have this slipperiness to them. Things don't necessarily stick to them like things do for the other aura types. And then we'll jump to the manifester. Manifester's aura kind of looks like a boat, in the sense that when you look at a boat from the top as it's moving through the water, it's pushing water around the hull. So manifestors have a very pushy aura because they're here to get things started and to make things happen. So they're pushing things out of the way so that things can happen. And so what I like to say is, if a manifestor is trying to make something happen, you either need to get out of the way or get behind them and help them push. Then you have the projector, which is pretty self-explanatory in a sense. It's a projector, so their aura kind of projects out, and it's considered a penetrating type of an aura. I like to say that projectors need to keep in mind that they need to behave kind of like an eye doctor, because they have the capacity to see. They're projecting out. They have the capacity to see, but sometimes, like an eye doctor, when they shine the light in your eye, if you're not ready for it, it can be blinding and it can be painful, and it's not what you want. So the projector has to make sure that you're ready to get under their little beams before they start doing whatever it is they're trying to do. Because sometimes they are just projecting what they want to see, and they're not actually seeing what's happening. And then the final 2 types is the generator and the manifesting generator. So both types of generators are here to create the life force energy and we are here to pull life towards us. And the regular generator is just the more feminine version of it, and the manifesting generator is the more masculine version of it. So we pull, and because I'm a regular generator, it's constantly pulling. I want to manifest something. I'm not so necessarily supposed to go out there and get it. That's the Nike just do it type attitude is more for manifestors, true manifestors, the boat type aura. Whereas a pure generator, I'm pulling life to me. It's all about letting life come to you as a generator. And I mean, you still have to open your hand like in baseball and catch it. When something comes to you, you can't just sit there and let it hit you in the head. And then you're just like, what happened? You got to open your hand. You still got to grab it. But then the manifesting generator, they are still pulling life to them. But what they're doing is once they pull life to them, then they plug in. Whereas with a regular generator, we pull life toward to us, and then life pulls things out of us. Like I'm not really putting myself into this. It's just kind of coming out. So that's the difference between a manifesting generator and a generator.
I'm pretty sure that I'm a manifesting generator. That's something I do know. I've taken a look at my chart, but it's been kind of like the silly chart fairy who came and showed me my chart, giggled and ran away. And I'm like, oh, okay. I got the app and I, tried to look at a few things from there, but it just doesn't register in that way. I think it's really wonderful to like speak to someone and learn. Do you have any classes or teachings or resources?
I don't have anything like that set up right now. I don't have any formal classes or anything that I'm teaching. I mean, if someone wants to come and learn, I'm happy to teach them. Part of the reason I'm hesitant to have a formal class on human design is because it's a little bit of a distraction. What human design is really the best at teaching you is to get out of your head. And if you're already practiced at getting out of your head, listening to your gut, listening to your intuition, you're probably already following your design. And anything that I can tell you about your chart is just going to be giving you more permission to be yourself. And so if you really want to learn about human design that's going to actually benefit you on a day-to-day basis, it's just most of it is listen to your gut or listen to your emotions, and you need to give yourself time for your emotions to bring you clarity. Because like when I worked, I actually worked with a mentor for about 2 or 3 years, and he didn't teach me a thing about the numbers in the chart. He didn't teach me any of that. It was all just like, are you freaking out? Yes. You're not listening to your gut. You need to get in touch with your gut. Oh, you're freaking out? And he would just talk to me just using his own intuition to help bring me back to my gut and to get back into touch with my own intuition. I mean, if you want to learn about human design, there's books out there, and it's fun and it's cool. But I use it to help people who already are in touch with themselves, to just give them permission to relax more into who they already know that they are.
Yeah, and let go of those limiting thoughts, limiting beliefs, and like, I guess what we were taught sometimes can hold us back from expressing our true selves. And so, yeah, human design, I've experienced directly with astrology, that being liberating for me, because like, oh, I was born this way. Oh, God made me this way. Oh, it's okay to be like this, when sometimes, it's not understood by other people. So yeah, that's definitely it's like the astrology and human design is a bridge to that place. I like that. I love that human design is, it's like main lesson is listening to your gut and your inner guidance and your body. And the human design is a lot about the physical body, correct? Or is it more than that?
Uh, well, it's called the mechanics. So it's, I wouldn't necessarily say the physical body per se, but it's more about how you move in the world.
Okay.
So it's like, well, with being a generator, if I want to manifest things, I need to call it towards me. And that way I need something to come to me and pull things out of me. Like you're asking the questions, you're pulling the answers out of me. But you're the manifesting generator. So you've plugged into me and I've let you plug into me. So yeah. It's just about navigating this world, which is, the Maya, the illusionary world. It does not show you how to actually progress as a soul.
Okay.
Whereas things like, there is stuff in Vedic astrology and there is stuff in evolutionary astrology that talks about evolving as a soul. And I would say that even though vibrational astrology doesn't do that per se, because of the way that vibrational astrology works, it does show you things that will effectively allow you to do the same thing. Because if you're fighting your nature, you're not going to be progressing as a soul. Right. So that it does show that. It's more, human design is more about just how am I going to be operating in this realm, and how do I interact with other people as well? What kind of energetic archetypes are different people experiencing when they interact with each other?
That's something that I feel like I learned when I tuned into astrology, is having compassion for others as well, and an understanding that they were given a complete different blueprint than I have. So they might be different ways, and it's just given me more allowance to let other people be how they are and let me be how I am. So yeah.
That's probably one of my favorite things about it. And I mean, that is what I said, is I use the charts to give people permission to be themselves. And so if I have someone's chart and I'm not talking to them, usually I'm having it so that I can look at them and be like, why are you so annoying? And I'm looking at the chart. Oh, okay, they're like this. And then I can get over it. And then they're not annoying anymore.
Yeah. Just let it go. Yeah, it gives also people who feel like they need to know why, like people who ask why am I like this? Why is this person like this? Why is life like this? Why? I feel like these systems are really good for those really like analytical minds, because it does bring a sense of like solace, however you say that word, and peace to that chattering mind, because there are so many little things, it's like a perfect playground for the mind.
Yeah, funny enough, in human design, only 30% of all humanity has what's called a defined head. So only 30% of humanity are even supposed to be consistently thinking. The rest of us are just picking up on their thoughts.
I think that's a really interesting theory, like the thought field and picking up on other thoughts, because it definitely happens. It's like one day I was at the park with my little brother, and he was like pushing a fake child in a swing using his imagination, pretending it was his kid. And he was like, are you scared you're gonna fall off, like something like that? And then moments later, after he leaves, another little baby comes. She's sitting in the swing, and then she's like, I'm scared I'm gonna fall, and we're like, hey, was that just like her being sensitive to that thought and like being an open antenna? Yeah, so that's interesting how that works.
Yeah, it definitely does kind of just, it does show that, like you asked about people who ask why. Well, that's gate 61, the gate of knowing, wanting to know. I mean, I have that gate, and I was definitely one of those little kids that's like, why, mom, why, hey mom, why, mom, why? And my mom's favorite answer was, because because it is. Because she doesn't have a defined head, and so but I mean, it just means what human design really excels at, when you do start looking at the chart itself rather than just using it to help people get back in touch with their inner guidance system, is it shows you which parts of you are designed to be operating in a yin manner and a yang manner. And so that just kind of goes to what we were saying with the head, is like, most of us are designed to have yin heads. And the rest of us are trying to constantly think our way through life. But thinking your way through life is a yang action. And we're supposed to just receive thoughts. We're here to receive thoughts. And the problem is, wherever you have a yin thing going on in your chart, what your body does is it dials up the volume, because where we receive is how we get resources. It's how we get tools. It's how we get nourishment. And so we need to dial up the volume of the areas that we receive, because we need to be able to be very selective. We're hearing all the different little subtleties between what we're receiving in the thought realm, because we're looking for that one or two thought out there that is going to work to support us. And I'm going to use generators, since we're both manifesting and regular generators are 70% of humanity. We are trying to generate life. And so, again, sticking with my example of having the open head, we are looking for the right thought to support us in generating life. But the problem is, people don't know discernment. People don't listen to their gut or their emotions, depending on what type they are, to make decisions. And they just take all these thoughts in, and they think that they're all good, and they just, well, maybe not all of them, but they take a lot of them in and they just run with them anyway, rather than listening to their gut, which says, no, 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 that one, no, 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 no. So that's why there's so much chatter in the world, because it gets amplified and people are like, ooh, it's turned up. The volume's turned up. That must mean it's for me. It must be good. No, it's just turned up so that you can really be more selective.
Yeah. And, that piece of discernment has been really important with me in astrology too. When you're learning astrology, human design, anything where you're having other people tell you how you are, I think it's really important to listen to your inner guidance and have that discernment, because if something feels so disempowering that it is gut wrenching, that's something to listen to and to let go of. And that's something I had to learn. I went through a lot of like looking at my astrology aspects and seeing these things and then being scared and being like, oh no, I'm doomed. But then again, there is the responsibility there too. It's like you do have to be real with yourself as well, like maybe you are having some of the lower traits. And so honesty and discernment, definitely. And I did want to ask, with the chart, I think I still have the one you gave me, but the yin you were talking about is when those boxes are not filled in, right? With color?
Right.
And then the yang is when they are filled in with color.
Exactly. And then so it'll show you that you have yin within yang and yang within yin, because you have the center as a whole, whether it's colored or not. And then you have the individual gates within each center. So typically you'll have, let's say you have a colored center. In order to have a colored center, that means you do have one gate that is connected to another gate on the other side of that channel or circuit. You can look at kind of like it looks kind of like a computer almost. It looks kind of like a circuit board. So you have, so let's say generator, you have to have the sacral with one gate connected to another gate in any other center. And that's what makes a generator, is that sacral center is colored in. There is a defined flow of energy between the sacral center and one other center. So in my case, it's the spleen. So I have 34 talking to 57 at all times consistently. And the consistency, that's what makes it masculine, is it's consistent. So I have this consistent energy, and it's yang within yang. You've got the center is colored, and you've got 34 is colored. So yang within yang. But then on the other hand, gate 59 within that center is not colored in my case. So you have a yin inside of the yang. And then you have another center, for example, my solar plexus center is not colored in. So it's yin. And I have 22 is not colored in. So the yin within the yin. But then gate 6, which is in the solar plexus, for me, it is colored in. So you have the yang within the yin. And then you have, you have that for everybody. Everybody's going to have that. On very rare occasions, you've got the reflectors where all the centers are yin, but they have yang within the yin. And on very rare occasions, I've met a couple people like this where every single center was colored.
Wow.
So every single center is behaving in a yang manner, but again, they'll have gates within those centers, because you can only have a maximum of 26 gates colored in because of the planetary activations. They always have yin gates within yang centers. So everybody has to learn how to balance the yin.
Right. And it's just like the yin and yang sign, it has the black, the yin, and the white, the yang. I believe that's how it is. It might be the other way around. And then they have the little white dot within the black dot, and the black dot within the white. And that's really cool how that shows up. I'm really interested in checking it out more. I'll go ahead and show the little, I think it's right here, the little paper you gave me so that you can see. This is the chart, right? Yeah.
The blank chart. This is the base chart. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I think that's also the picture we'll use so that when we're talking, people can reference it or just have a little bit of a visual.
Great.
Well, Chloe, is there anything else that you want to share or speak on?
Well, I just want to say that if someone does want to learn human design, there's plenty of book resources out there. But if you want to learn from me, I'm happy to do one-on-one teachings.
And Chloe does offer astrology readings. What system do you use? Remind me.
So because I'm still learning vibrational astrology, I kind of blend all of everything together. I use some Hellenistic astrology, I use Western, and I use vibrational as much as I have grasp of it so far. But I will blend vibrational astrology with human design, and I've gotten some really good results with it so far. So nice. I just it's in my chart. I just integrate everything together, and that's just what happens.
So she will read the map of you through all these different modalities. And can you share your website?
Yeah, it's a polar-compass.com.
Wonderful. Yeah, check her out. She has a wealth of knowledge and information, and just a wonderful person to pick her brain a little bit on all these fun topics. And with that being said, would you like to share your prayer song uh, expression?
Oh, yeah. If I had a boat, I'd go out on the ocean. And if I had a pony, I'd ride him on that boat. And we could all together go out on the ocean. Me up on my pony on my boat.
Woo! Thank you, Chloe.
Thank you.